Brian, you work and interact with many companies, and you see many companies making quite stretching commitments from a sustainability standpoint.
Right.
And it's great to make those commitments, but from a supply chain leader standpoint, what do you see as some of the steps they should be taking towards being able to deliver those commitments?
That's an excellent question. And supply chain has a key role in executing for sustainability, so maybe to begin there. But the first job of the supply chain officer is to determine how to take the company's strategy and adapt it to be the supply chain strategy. So there's a flow down of strategy. In particular, how do the measurements of sustainability take root within the supply chain? Unless we can make it real for people working within manufacturing and operations, they don't have targets that they can converge on. So that's one. The second thing would be to focus on development of use cases. So things that we can do. Simply measuring and advertising the metric might get you in some ways some progress, but that alone won't get you where you need to go. You need to take action. And to take action, you need to isolate particular use cases. The good news is that you don't have to do all of the use cases. A journey of 1,000 steps begins with one step, so identifying one or two. And I have my particular favorites, but yield optimization is one of those, packaging changes that can be done. All of these things are relatively easy to conceive of and begin. The good news also is that the operation is particularly good at executing projects. So getting them going on meaningful projects that are then aligned to those metrics from the strategy is a good step. Also, we need to think about, call it the sustainability of sustainability. Are the programs that we put in place actually viable over the long term? And for them to be viable over the long term, among other things, two things need to be true, one or the other. One, it's a win-win situation. So packaging reductions would fall into that category quite clearly. The second would be, if there's an inherent trade-off, you mentioned earlier, alternate sources of supply. Alternate sources of supply are fantastic, and particularly if alternate sources are lower greenhouse gas emitting, but those alternate sources aren't necessarily the cheaper sources. So an honest admission of where there's increased cost and making that trade-off would be required.
Okay, fantastic. Well, look, I think that there's a lot in there for supply chain leaders to think about, and some great ideas for them to start working on as they drive towards those commitments.
Agreed.